Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 13th Annual Jacobs Institute College Internship Presentations. I'm Julia Victor. I'm the Education Assistant here at the Jacobs Institute, and this year I had the pleasure of working alongside Pam Marcucci in facilitating our college internship program. As always, our internships have blown us away. We are incredibly impressed with all their hard work and dedication over the past 10 weeks. I think I can speak on behalf of the entire Jacobs Institute team when I say how proud we are of all they have accomplished. The projects and outcomes you'll see today reflect not only technical skill and innovative thinking, but also a genuine commitment to advancing the capabilities and reach of the JI. These interns truly embody the mission of the Jacobs Institute and represent the collaboration and collisions that can occur when we bring together cross-disciplinary teams. Before we begin, I would like to ask everybody to please hold any questions until the conclusion of these presentations. Please feel free to use the note cards and pens available in front of you to jot down your questions as they come up. If you would prefer, a staff member will be around to help you to ask your question for you, or we can bring you a microphone. So the work that they have done here today gives us great confidence in the future of our field. And I am proud to introduce our incredible team, and apparently every great internship deserves their own 90s sitcom, so please sit back and enjoy this unaired episode of Full House. Everywhere you look, everywhere there's a heart, a hand to hold on to. Everywhere you look, everywhere there's a place of somebody who needs you. Everywhere you look, when you're lost out there and you're all alone, life is waiting to carry you home. Everywhere you look, everywhere you look. See, I told you they were awesome. So without further ado, I would love to welcome up our first speaker and engineering intern, Erin, to kick things off. Thank you.
So thank you, Julia, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erin Piegza, and I'm one of the engineering interns here at the Jacobs Institute. So I'm excited to not only talk about my project, but to also highlight the experiences we have all shared this summer. So in my opinion, one of the most defining characteristics of the Jacobs Institute is the constant strive for growth and expanding wider that is evident not only through our many projects at the Jacobs Institute, but especially with the intern program this summer. So even though we worked on very different projects, whether that's expanding our capabilities, our models, or our outreach, I believe we all truly contributed to the Jacobs Institute's expansion and growth. And so that is what we've chosen for our theme for this presentation. So specifically, my contribution to this growth is expanding the Jacobs Institute's testing capabilities. So my project was to refurbish an old IDT E2000. This is a machine that does mechanical testing on catheters, and it was in the labs upstairs, and it was not being used, so we got to bring it down to the Jacobs Institute and fix it up. So just for a little background on catheters, these are thin, flexible tubes that are used to access different parts of your anatomy and deliver devices to treat things like blood clots or aneurysms. And engineers can design these catheters with different mechanical properties, like being more stiff or more flexible, depending on their use. So you can see here, I have a catheter over here, and this is the proximal end, which is the side that's close to me, and as you transfer from the proximal end to the distal tip, which just means the end of the catheter, you can see that it gets from more stiff to more flexible. And so this is where my project becomes really useful. So my machine can do tests like trackability, pushability, and torqueability to measure the forces when using these catheters. So, for example, trackability is how much force needed to push the catheter through anatomy, and then pushability measures how much of that force is transmitted to the end of the tip of the catheter. So when engineers constantly need to make new designs and new uses for these catheters, having these metrics to measure the effectiveness and analytically judge their performance is extremely useful. So it does this with three main systems. First is the roller system. This automatically advances and retracts the catheters into a 3D model of the anatomy, and it also includes a proximal sensor to measure the forces to do so. Next is the water bath. This is what holds the 3D model and then also can pump fluid in it to simulate blood flow when you're doing a test. And then finally, this is the distal sensor. If you remember, distal means the tip of the catheter. So you usually place this at the end of the anatomy to measure how much the force transmits from the beginning of the catheter to the end. And of course, there's a computer system that is responsible for recording and graphing all of this data. So this is how the system is supposed to work. Unfortunately, this is not the machine I had started with. When I first got to go to the lab upstairs, there were so many worn components, missing fixtures, and added on parts over the years. The roller system, as you can see there, was just supported with a very long extrusion that was just propped up on one end of the table. So like my first days at the lab, I just was wandering through and trying to look in the many drawers and find all these missing components. And I also figured out that they had included a whole new add-on sensor and system to replace the original torque system from the manufacturer. So like without documentation, you can see that this very complex and incomplete system is really hard to figure out, especially with all these new modifications. So to do this, I tried to tackle this with three goals. First, I tried to physically fix the hardware of the system. So to do this, I replaced worn rollers, I designed new fixtures in CAD, I replaced that very long extrusion with a shorter one, and I tried to locate all the missing parts. Next, I focused on calibration and software. To do this, I calibrated the distal and proximal sensors with different weights, and then I verified that that could communicate and graph accurately on the computer. And so after I got the system physically working, my next question was, is this data even reliable or worth anything? So this brings me to my verification testing. So to verify the system, I placed a support and a guide catheter in a model from your carotid artery to the middle cerebral artery from your neck to your head. And I repeated the exact same guide wire tractability test over the span of 3 days, and I recalibrated the machine each day. So I did this because I wanted to show that the machine could produce repeatable data, and so because of that, you'd ideally want to see the same force curves throughout those 3 days. And if you look at the results, this is the average force per day versus the distance the guide wire was pushed. And across all 3 days, you can see that the trends are very similar and only with some variation. And then throughout all the trials, the maximum force stays pretty consistent, as well as the coefficient of variation is around 8.2%, which shows the results are pretty consistent and repeatable and not just outputting random results and data. So after I determined that this machine could produce repeatable results, I tried to demonstrate that the new testing capabilities of the machine could also do, and also to show that it could detect differences in different testing conditions and devices. So for this, I performed a stent retrieval test into an aspiration catheter, and I used 2 different brands of stent retrievers against 2 different liquids, water and a detergent solution. For those of you who don't know, a stent retriever is a device that is used to expand in a blood clot and then retract to pull it out and unclog your arteries. So as you can see here, if you look at stent A, the 2 liquids follow a very similar trend with the force increasing as you're starting to pull the device into the catheter, and then it reaches a peak before dipping off once the device is fully inside the catheter. And then you can also see how the detergent solution decreased the maximum value needed to retract these stents because of the decreased friction. And then if you look at stent B, you can see that it looks kind of different with the force increasing over a more gradual distance, but there is still a less maximum force needed for the detergent solution than the water solution. And so these graphs show us, it's less about the specific numbers and more just showing that the machine is sensitive enough to detect these differences in different liquids and different testing conditions. So then why does this even matter? So I think this was really important for expanding the Jacobs Institute testing capabilities, because now that they have this machine, they can test new catheter designs, test more complex anatomies, and measure different fluids and how that changes testing environments. And then for me personally, just learning to be comfortable with uncertainty, when I was facing this big project, it was very daunting to not immediately know what to do. But I can definitely say over the course of the internship, I have strengthened not only my engineering skills, but also my skills in learning to ask questions and pivot when things go wrong. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you for listening to my project, and I want to give an extra thank you to my mentor, Ariana, who has helped me so much throughout this whole experience. And with that, I'll pass it off to the next engineering intern, Madeline Ferreter.
All right, thank you, Erin, for the warm welcome and excellent work on the IDTE. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Madeline Ferreter. I'm an incoming senior at the University of Buffalo studying biomedical engineering, and I had the privilege of being one of the engineering interns here at the Jacobs Institute this summer, working on the cardiac biosimulator, which turned into cardiac biosimulators by the end of the 10 weeks. Now, I'm very excited to share all of the things that we've done this summer. However, I was working with pig hearts during the duration of the project. So if you see that in the top right corner of the screen, that is your warning that there's going to be something anatomical on the next slide. And no, this is not just a test. There is a heart on the next slide. So what is a cardiac biosimulator? I feel like it's a good point to start off on. A cardiac biosimulator is a benchtop system that recreates heart anatomy, motion, and blood flow. And for the JI specifically, it adds the capability for in-house cardiovascular device testing and expands the training program for physicians and industry partners. In order to use the biosimulator and perfusion technology that we already have, the JI needed to create a fixture that would both hold and connect the heart to this technology, as seen on the right with their original model. However, this fixture had some limitations, which is where I came in and I was tasked with these past 10 weeks to improve upon. So first off, we had poor imaging under fluoroscopy. If you know anything about imaging, metal does not show up very well under those imaging devices, and there was a lot of metal in this system. We had a restricting connector design. Limited catheter navigation provided a lot of frustration for physicians and engineers who were using the system. Leaky vessels were repaired by metal hemostats. Again, metal does not show up very well under the imaging. And we had limited endoscope, which is just a fancy word for internal camera, visibility. So it was very hard to see what was going on inside of the heart. Our first goal was to create a base that would be using materials that would mostly be invisible under this fluoroscopy. For our main base, we used acrylic, which is radiolucent, meaning that the X-rays go right through it and you can't see it on any kind of imaging. For our remaining components, we use rigid SLA and FDM, which are both 3D printed plastics. Our goal was to reduce the use of metal as much as possible, which you can see we accomplished with the improvement from the first generation to second generation. Our next design challenge was to improve upon certain elements that we already had to make the setup of the perfusion more efficient and effective. For our connectors, we implemented a gradual taper to allow for easy access of this catheter into and out of the heart. For our clips, we had a bunch of different types of thicknesses and sizes to account for the different types of vessels we may encounter with the varying pig heart anatomies. And for our adapters, our original adapters we used were very bulky and caused a lot of unnecessary strain on the vessels that it was connected into. So our new design is slim, it's very light, and it reduces that strain. So now that we had the components built, it was time to test and validate their effectiveness in the imaging scope. We wanted to confirm that this could eventually be used in benchtop and as another service that the JI could provide. On the top left, we have our Siemens C-arm, which takes those fluoroscopy images. They're then projected in real time on the monitor on the right. We have down below our porcine heart on our radiolucent base, connected to our perfusion pump with our flow loop. This actually provides the fluid to the system. Our fluid in this case was water. When looking to our experiment setup, we have three main components. We have that perfusion loop, which you saw on the last slide. Secondly, we have our tablet with controllable perfusion. We're able to control power, intensity, systolic and diastolic pressures, heart rate, you name it, all to control the type of experiment we want to run. And lastly, we have our flexible borescope for imaging. We're able to get clear, real-time images of where we are in the heart, which allows us to see how the anatomy is reacting to those changes we're making on the tablet. Altogether, we get a very well-rounded view of the cardiac system. Now, we made some great improvements to fluoroscopy and 3D reconstruction, again, with that movement from the first to second generation. In our first generation, the original imaging, the metal, hemostats, and clamps were all still visible and caused a lot of blockage to the anatomy of interest. With our reconstruction, the metal that was in that structure caused a lot of X-ray scattering and caused that fuzzy construction where no segmentation is possible, so we get the block image. In our second generation, we had much improved imaging. We removed the use of metal completely in the field of view, where no metal is now visible. We have a clear outline of the heart and great catheter visibility as we're moving from different chambers of the heart. With respect to our reconstruction, we now have a very clear reconstruction and segmentation of what we were actually looking at on bench. By segmentation, I mean just separating the different parts of the component. So the different colors there are what we segmented out: the base, the heart, and the clips. This is huge for testing applications moving forward as more devices are implemented. Another large step for testing applications is the improved imaging from contrast runs. Contrast injections allow us to see a multitude of different things. We have the efficiency of pulsatile flow, heart anatomy, and where blockages may be. In the image on the left here, we can see three main components of the heart. We have the aortic arch, atrium, and ventricle. This is, again, great for the eventual implementation of these devices and how they interact with the body. Now, I'd like to direct your attention to the video that's about to play on the far left of the screen. In a living heart, all valves open and close completely, partially due to an electrical signal that your body sends with each pump of the heart. We're currently missing the electrical component. However, we are able to see a pulsing motion, both internally with this view of the aortic valve and externally with the view of the heart. Including an electrical component to the heart is a very promising area of research as we move through different iterations of this setup. Having this contracting valve would revolutionize the way that the JI does benchtop cardiovascular testing. So the theme of this internship was growing wider, and my project did exactly that. We are expanding the Jacobs Institute portfolio into structural heart and cardiovascular innovation. We created a new translational testing and training service that the Jacobs Institute can now offer to clinicians, industry partners, and researchers. The cardiac biosimulator allows for testing of commercially available devices, such as TAVR and Pascal, which are both valve replacement systems, as well as early feasibility studies for new companies trying their new devices. So, we nailed down the setup to get clear fluoroscopy images, but we wanted to grow wider. With 1 week left, we were asked a question. Is it possible to get another type of imaging called TEE, or transesophageal echocardiograms, into the system? So with this fully submersible testing tank, we now have the ability to do both, have the TEE and the fluoroscopy at the same time. While it's not yet tested on bench, it's a very exciting area of future work for the JI as we continue to expand our testing and training bandwidth. Now, I have my main 5 takeaways here, but I'll emphasize the first. I learned a lot about the power of perseverance during the duration of this internship, and that things don't work out the first time all the time. Your first idea is rarely going to be your last, and engineering, especially in the R&D fields, are all about refining and reiterating your designs until they become that successful reality you're looking for. I've had a fantastic experience here at the JI, and it just reaffirmed my belief that biomedical engineering is meant for me. I just want to say a quick thank you to my mentor, Mike, who's been absolutely incredible in this process, answering all my questions and just being an awesome guide during this. For Pam and Julia, who ran this fantastic internship. For the other interns, for dealing with my silly sitcom shenanigans, and for being that sanity check when I needed it with my model. And for my parents, for listening to me talk to them every single day about this project, so much so to the point where I'm pretty sure they could have gotten up here and done it themselves. So with that, I would love to hand it off to our next engineering intern, Andrew.
All right, thank you, Madeline. So I'm Andrew, and I'm a robotics and mechanical engineering student at WPI, and I am currently an engineering intern for the model development team. My project this summer is to redesign the legacy access and neurothrombectomy model, which you can see on screen. So endovascular surgeries are a very low risk and minimally invasive procedure involving things like thrombectomies, which involve clearing arteries, repairing aneurysms, and more. Thus, a way to test these endovascular devices and train surgeons is needed. However, cadavers are typically limited, non-repeatable, and do not last a long time. To fill this need for device testing and training, the JI developed the ANT model about 10 years ago. This has been a cornerstone for training neurosurgeons as well as catheter testing. It's an anatomically accurate model that features vessels starting from the right-hand wrist, the inner thigh, looping around the heart, and then ending in the intracranial or brain section. Earlier versions were printed entirely in one piece, starting they were printed entirely on one piece from the Stratasys PolyJet 3D printers, but our newer ones are now divided into more sections, as you can see on that right-hand side image. Across all designs, vessels have been fixed to the base to take advantage of the multi-material printing properties of those printers. However, these vascular models have some limitations to them and have room for further improvement. Firstly, these models are very, very costly to produce. This is in large part due to the advanced but expensive materials. In addition, these models take a long time to process, starting from design to print cleanup. The PolyJet 3D printing technology, while advanced, leaves a lot of support material inside and outside of the model, which takes a couple days to remove. Finally, each of these models are very costly to replace because vessels are conjoined to the base. If you were to try and replace just one of the vessel sections, you would have to reprint the entire base from start, which would take probably a couple $1,000s. All of these challenges were addressed in my project, which is the new 2026 prototype ANT model. This new prototype addresses a lot of these limitations, including increased modularity, cost effectiveness, repairability, and manufacturability. The key feature is that vessels can now be removed from each base, and they can be swapped out for new sections if they want to be replaced or if they are damaged. If a user, for example, wanted a new aortic arch with a different geometry, they would no longer have to shell out a few $1,000s for an entirely new section. They would simply put in a request for a new vessel and then get that re-3D printed, which is about $50, and then click it into place. So these supports and the vessels are still 3D printed, but the new development is that the base is now made of acrylic. This is a very large cost-saving measure as well as production time-saving measure, because now all of these parts can be made in parallel. We do not have to wait several days for each print to come off the print bed. In addition, the processing time has now been reduced from a few days to a matter of hours. So in the original print, it would take a few days to remove all the supports, take everything out, clean them. But in this new design, I was able to do everything in just about half a day. Also, on the right-hand side, you can see in between two vessels, there is this quick disconnect connector. So all you would have to do is take your two vessels, snap them together, and voila, it's all together. Now, there's one major design change that you wouldn't be able to tell just by looking at the model. This is that this model was developed almost entirely in SolidWorks. While this software is very capable and designed to be highly flexible, it is typically not used for complex organic shapes such as blood vessels. However, the nature of this project is a need for a more flexible engineered model rather than an exact one-to-one patient scan. In summary, this design process starts with a patient scan on the far left with vessel center lines, and then you would draw circular cross-sectional profiles along it, connect those profiles using lofts and sweeps, and then hollow out that shell to get the final vessel. While we're still talking about design, I wanted to touch on a bit of a side project of mine. So while designing this model, I realized that drawing all these sketches takes a very, very long time, and I came up with the idea to automate some of this process to create vessels in SolidWorks. One of the most time-consuming processes is the one shown here, which is simply drawing all of these circles along the line. So with the help of my good friends Claude and ChatGPT, I created an automatic macro that can take this 30-minute process and then automatically draw circles for me, so I don't have to go in manually and click everything myself. So everything you see here in this video is done completely automatically. I didn't touch anything besides like a couple buttons at the start just to get it moving. So there are also a few notable cost-saving opportunities for this particular model, which we may have touched on earlier. So the first major cost saving is that we switched from the PolyJet 3D printers to Formlabs. This saves a lot on both material cost and waste. So the material itself is around 65% cheaper from Formlabs compared to Stratasys, and there's also significantly less waste material used in the print. In addition, we started relying a lot less on the 3D printed materials themselves because while they're advanced, they're expensive, and we decided we wanted to replace them with acrylic, which is $23 from McMaster-Carr. So all in all, this results in a very enormous cost savings, around 75 to 95% cheaper, depending on the model section. After this model was completed, we hooked it up to a pump to simulate flow from the heart to test if it could withstand the flow and pressure. The first time, however, we made a bit of a mishap and we accidentally closed off all the outlets of the model. Ironically enough, though, the model survived and we ended up bursting some of the pipe fittings on the pump we were using. So it's pretty safe to say that this model survives the durability test. We also tested navigating a catheter up to the intracranial regions to see if it was possible to use this model for training and testing. So here is an X-ray image from the previous slides of the model under a C-arm so that we could simulate a navigation procedure to the intracranial arteries. Starting from the radial axis in the right-hand wrist, I was successfully able to navigate a microcatheter up the arm, through the heart, and then up into the intracranial sections of the brain. Given that this was my first time attempting it, I'd say I did a pretty good job, even though it took 2 hours and a broken catheter. While great strides were made in this project in the past 10 weeks, I believe that there is still a lot of room for improvement. To start with, there is still only one variation of the model that has been designed, which is this intracranial section shown here. More variations, especially around the aorta and other parts, need to be developed before modularity can be properly showcased. In addition, this model did not go through a very rigorous testing and verification phase. More design verifications and tests need to be performed on this model to test for things like material properties, flexibility, as well as surface texture. Then, because the SLA process doesn't allow for multi-material printing, any simulated clots or plaque buildup has to be injected manually. Before, in our Stratasys 3D printers, it was possible to put plaque buildup within the parts themselves so that you would simply put a stent in and then do your testing that way. But now it has to be done manually. Finally, while unrefined and unfinished, this SolidWorks macro still has a lot of potential to accelerate more flexible design workflows. Before I began working at the JI, I had been quite hesitant about working in the biomedical engineering field, simply just because I didn't really know much about it. Almost immediately after coming to the JI, though, a switch flipped in my brain, and I thought to myself, this is what I want to do. I'd like to thank my mentor, Mike, and the other JI employees for introducing me to the medical field, as well as guiding me through the project creation process. The JI taught me how engineers can make a true difference in the medical field, even if they don't know that much about it initially. One of the JI's core tenets is actually about education and cardiovascular health in the medical field. So I was fortunate enough to have had the opportunity to work with them. With that in mind, I'd like to introduce one of our education interns at the Jacobs Institute, Sophia Lynn Valentine.
Thank you, Andrew, and hello, and thank you guys again for coming here and supporting our summer internship. So, as you guys saw earlier, the engineering interns, including Andrew's project, a lot of them relate to education. They can be used as teaching tools. Education is not just one project or one internship at the JI. It's an entire department. This department focuses on supporting and educating future healthcare leaders at any stage of their medical journey. This is because we are always striving to reflect the JI's goal of empowering those to innovate, lead, and learn. My name is Sophia Lynn Valentine, and I'm an education intern at the JI. I'm also a biomedical engineering student at the UB, and my role this summer was to lead the high school programming along with Elnaz Amini. As I said earlier, here at the JI, it is not limited to one age group, but we encompass education for entire generations. We strive for programming to reach people across any stage in their life or career. We have youth programs where we expose them to healthcare and teach them about Western New York's current health problems, all the way to professional training where they can have clinical immersions, they can learn medical technologies, and have live device demonstrations. Everyone here that you heard from and will hear from are part of one of these programs, the college internship program. And all of them have one goal. My goal this summer was developing and leading the next gen internship programming my goal this summer was to lead and create the next gen internship program. All of these programs that you see now are connected by one main thing, and that is the education mission. This education mission can be divided into 5 elements in every program. Those elements are education and leadership, where we support Western New York students and the community surrounding it through our programming. The next one is hands-on learning, where we introduce careers and allow students to learn through their own experiences and opportunities. After that, we have health and preparedness, where we address cardiovascular health in Western New York and teach prevention methods. We also have access and diversity, where we offer no-cost opportunities and aim to reach economically disadvantaged students, no matter their race, gender, or identity. And then finally, community reach, where we connect and partner with Buffalo's medical and technology centers in order to give students resources and networking. NextGen manages to bring all these together into one program. The NextGen internship is a 2-week summer program for high school juniors and seniors who are introduced to the field of healthcare and the Jacobs Institute's mission. Students in this program are exposed to medicine, engineering, research, and healthcare careers, all while learning from professionals, activities, and team research. Students conduct research and present their findings at the end. My role, again, was to plan, organize, and lead this experience for them. But one thing that is important at the JI is growth, and you can't grow unless you learn from your feedback. So what I did in the beginning of this summer was I reviewed the 2025 exit survey feedback from previous interns. Reading this feedback, I was able to address and identify 3 different main areas for improvement. The students mentioned lecture-heavy sessions. They wanted to have an expanded career exploration through speakers, and they wanted more interactive activities. I did this and encouraged this and implemented this in this program by encouraging speakers to have interactive presentations. I also made sure to broaden the aspect of speakers that we had at this program. And then finally, I added more activities that also related to all the speakers so that the students can learn hands-on with what they are hearing. All this feedback guided direct decisions for the 2026 NextGen internship. Next is my favorite part, and probably the part that took the longest, which was creating the entire program. There was planning, connections. There was a lot of phone calls and emails sent during this time. There was also creation, where I created the activities and the workshops for the students to engage in. And then, of course, organization, where I put everything together at the end, and we had a final schedule. This is very important because this may be a lot of the students' first professional environment. I wanted this to be memorable and impactful for the students in order to help them in the future careers. Not only learning the medical skills that we have here at the JI, but also soft skills like confidence and networking. During this stage, I was able to turn the ideas and feedback into an actual complete 2-week program for these students. As I said earlier, we had a lot of speakers. Our speakers came from 4 sections of the healthcare field. We had neurosurgeons, engineers, nurses. It was all amazing. They shared education, career paths, current work, and their challenges. They had demonstrations, case examples, and engaging opportunities for the students to engage in. They showed multiple ways to contribute to the healthcare field, no matter your skill set or interest. They also created mentorship opportunities, as many of the students requested their contact information afterward to further this opportunity beyond the program. So, as I said earlier, I then took what we had from the speakers and created activities. They were able to learn through their experience, and this was divided into 3 main categories: observation, application, and connection. One of the main ones that a lot of the students loved was the observation. We were able to see the gross anatomy lab at the Jacobs School of Medicine and hold actual human organs. This was a very engaging opportunity, and it was honestly a little surprising because I've never done that myself. Application-wise, we did a bunch of activities like heart valve, we did circulatory systems, and then connections, we did teamwork games, professional workshops, and Jeopardy games, just to build confidence with each other and get that networking started early on. And then, of course, we had our research. This was one of the main parts of this program. There was 5 teams that presented an issue that affected cardiovascular health. They were designated and designed around active community health challenges in the Western New York area or across the globe. Their goal was to research and find prevention strategies and community solutions for their problem. They also had to find if they could be implemented to improve the assigned issue. They built research, showed teamwork skills, and improved their presentational skills tremendously in just this 2-week opportunity. They also exceeded every single one of my expectations. They were amazing. They knew straight on how they wanted to divide up the teamwork and got to it. Their presentations were very, very engaging, and could not be more proud of them. They also showed their confidence that I really wanted them to gain during this program, that soft skill that you can also learn and use no matter your career field. And then some students had the opportunity to be selected beyond the next gen. This was a 5-week extension of the program where they got placed into a UB lab across the campus and were able to work alongside experienced mentors. They were able to move their career exploration into real research. They were able to build technical skills and gain early laboratory experience before college, which is an amazing opportunity for anyone who has the chance. And then, of course, I had to see how this impacted everyone. I was able to collect data and review it to see how those implementations and challenges and feedback were taken for this program. 50% of the students and more said that their confidence increased during this program. 25% of the students actually mentioned that they were interested in now changing their desired career field into the healthcare realm. And then every single person said that they think that this program helped them for college later on. I also have 2 quotes from 2 of my interns that highlight this and show their personal experience. I want to make sure that we continue using this feedback to improve and grow each year so that we can make this program the best possible program for these students. And then, of course, I have to thank the Mother Cabrini Health Foundation and the Maverick Foundation for their generous grants that made these opportunities possible by supporting the Next Gen internships and the college internships. They helped us inspire and prepare our future healthcare professionals. And then for me, I was able to grow alongside these students. I was able to see a new side of the Jacobs Institute and biomedical engineering that I never thought of. I also learned a lot about speaking with different people. I never spoke with surgeons before or engineers in the actual field, and this is going to be very useful in the future. And then, of course, I want to say thank you for the Jacobs Institute team, the fellow interns, and my interns. I had an amazing summer, and I could not be any less proud and thankful for everyone here. And then, of course, I have to transition to Elnaz Amini, who was in charge of one of our other programs, the Jacobs Scholars.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Thank you so much all for being here. My name is Elnaz Amini. I'm a first-year MBA student at the University of Buffalo. And this summer, I had the incredible opportunity to serve as an education intern for the Jacobs Scholars Program. So you may be wondering, what is the Jacobs Scholars Program? This is a multi-year STEM enrichment program here at the Jacobs Institute. The pilot program started in 2021, and we then reimagined the curriculum of this program in 2025. This summer, we were lucky to host 4 scholars. We had 2 freshman scholars and 2 sophomore scholars. Students come to the JI each summer for 2 weeks throughout their high school journey. So it starts during their freshman year up until their senior year. And here I'm providing you with an overview of the milestones of each summer. So what do we cover? During their first year, we focus on building background. So what does this mean? It means that we teach them about the foundations of neurologic and vascular diseases, as well as opportunities in healthcare and biomedical engineering. In their year 2, students focus on engineering and research principles. So they're able to apply engineering concepts to analyze the design and function of a medical device. In their year 3, students focus on device development process, and they're able to collaborate with interdisciplinary teams to refine device specifications. And lastly, in their year 4, students are able to develop an AI-based model that will then predict stroke risk using data from wearable devices. And as you can see, this amazing opportunity is possible thanks to the generous donation from the Jacobs family. So here I would like to talk a little bit about my role this summer. This summer, I was able to design meaningful STEM learning experiences for our students. I was able to build on the curriculum from last year and add in my ideas. I facilitated different educational modules for students. I was also able to collaborate with over Next Gen Intern Sophia to coordinate speaker series as well as intentional and creative activities. I mostly worked with over first-year scholars, so I guided their research on vascular and neurologic diseases. And I was also able to support additional educational initiatives like over brain boot camps. Here, I would like to take some time to address the impact that this program had on over first-year scholars this summer. So the data that you see on the screen, this comes from a self-assessment that the students did before and then after the program. This summer, I had 6 learning outcomes for our students, and here I'm addressing 3 out of the 6. It was very important for us to teach students about the mission and vision of the JI. And as you can see, the students were not so familiar in the beginning to them being very familiar by the time they left the 2-week program. Same when it comes in terms of exploring medical device development process, they were not at all familiar to then being moderately familiar for both students. Additionally, they did gain a foundational understanding of vascular and neurologic diseases. And as you can see, they were not too familiar in the beginning to being moderately familiar for one student and very familiar for another. They also demonstrated this growth by researching and presenting on different topics. One student researched and presented on hemorrhagic stroke and another on hypertension. And I do want to mention that this is just the impact that we can see for this year. These students will come into the JI for the additional 3 years and build on this strong foundation that they gained this summer. Our second-year scholars also had an amazing experience this summer. They worked very closely with Julia to understand reverse engineering of a medical device. They also worked with Andrew, one of our engineering interns, to learn more about computer-aided design CAD. They were able to use Fusion 360 to transform 2D sketches into 3D model. And they applied CAD to their reverse engineering project to really understand the design and function of that medical device. Now, I would like to take a minute to talk about my growth at the JI. This summer wasn't just about facilitating educational module for our students, it was also about building wider. And what do I mean by that? I was able to step outside of my comfort zone. I came into this internship with not having any background in STEM, to then being able to facilitate different modules on vascular system and neurologic diseases. So I was able to do that. And I was also able to facilitate different STEM activities for our students. I also gained a deeper appreciation for interdisciplinary collaboration. So I saw here at the JI how our engineers, physicians, educators, administrators work together to improve healthcare and drive innovation. This was also another meaningful opportunity for me to see the impact that I'm leaving on my students, the way that I was able to empower my students, give them the tools to be successful, and see the different opportunities that are here for them when it comes to healthcare and biomedical engineering. And with that, I want to say thank you so much to the Jacobs Institute for hosting this summer internship, and to my mentors, Pam and Julia, for their mentorship and support. And with that, I would like to now call to the stage Peyton Cervoni, who will then talk about how our interns' work was supported this summer. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for all the interns for warming up the stage for me today. So leading up to this point, we've been gifted this opportunity to really reflect on all the growth, all the different shapes it took here at the Jacobs Institute this summer. From hearing about our engineers working on new tools and models to help expand the service capabilities of the JI, to our education interns who built their own curriculums and helped lead our largest high school intern cohort to date. However, oftentimes we look at these very tangible outcomes and we fail to beg the question, how did these opportunities come forth? What supports were in place to even allow interns to come into the JI and have this impact? And honestly, that's where my job comes in. So today I'm going to take you backstage with me for the rest of our presentation to explore a little bit about how my work this summer has helped to support our education and engineering initiatives. My name is Peyton Cervoni. I am a dual degree MBA and MPH candidate at the University of Buffalo, and I was the sole communications and philanthropy intern this summer at the JI. In very simple terms, I like to tell people that my job was to tell stories. I work to tell the stories of our student interns, our high school interns. We also have our engineers, and also the community that is very impacted by the work we do here. And when I say we need to tell stories, it's so important because our growth cannot happen in isolation. Just as any seed needs sunlight and water to grow, we need the support of our communities to help further our mission here at the JI. So as in the nature of communications, I had my hands in multiple different projects this summer, but I can ultimately break it down into 3 silos. Starting off, I really helped us grow our technical outreach. This mostly took the form of helping build a Substack webpage for the JI. And a Substack is ultimately a web platform that mixes classic web page design with social media attributes and the capabilities to send newsletters. So not only can we now actively post some of our research efforts here, we also can immediately share those new articles to our subscribers via email. Aside from building kind of the skeleton and some templates for this Substack newsletter, I also contributed to writing the first 2 articles. The first one is focused on our clinician education experiences that we offer here at the JI, and the second one looked at how the JI has partnered with a new venture that is looking to develop a new treatment of stroke. Next, I also helped a lot with our community engagement, and this really took form by helping manage our intern social media takeovers this summer. I helped develop our schedule, set expectations, and I also got the opportunity to sit down and collaborate with my fellow peers to really help them create the narrative that they want to share. This ultimately helped us expand our Western New York audience awareness, just in the sense that our interns are our biggest ambassadors. I also, and this was my favorite part probably of the entire summer, was just having the chance to help empower my peers to build their own professional brand. One thing I constantly hear at the Jacobs Institute, mostly from engineers, is just that school didn't prepare you to communicate your work with a more general audience. This was most of my peers' first time on a larger platform and stage where they got to show off their skills and expertise this summer. And it was really wonderful getting to watch everybody step out of their comfort zone to do that. Finally, I helped out a lot with philanthropy and support here at the JI. I first helped update our communications newsletter. We initially had one, but we wanted to cater it a little bit more to donor updates. And I contributed to writing the first 2 articles. The first being a research biography on the 2 giants in medicine who helped inspire the JI, Dr. Nick Hopkins and Dr. Larry Jacobs. And the second one was one of our success stories where one of our partnerships in our I2R program is about to be entering in human trials here shortly. I also helped with grant writing efforts. So as we have heard from our education interns, we get funding from Mother Cabrini. So I got the opportunity to write our statement of need for that. And I also developed the Seeds of Innovation fundraising campaign to further help with our education funding. The Seeds of Innovation is currently still ongoing. Right now, we have raised about $4,150, which is crazy to say, after just a few days of it going live, and our goal is $10,000. For this, I've helped create 5 different targeted email campaigns, each one having different values and different language for every segment that we are looking to address. I also built social media campaigns using high school intern and alumni intern quotes about how impactful their experience here was. And I also helped develop our donation page using language and photos from my experience. So, heading more into my reflection on this program and experience, I learned that communications is a lot more than just creating content. Although I'm working on newsletters, articles, social media posts, it's not really that's impactful. It's the stories from the students, the partners, patients, clinicians, and community members whose lives changed when they walked into the JI's doors. And when others are aware and understand our mission and our impact here at the JI, they want to engage with it. And that could look like offering resources, offering expertise, partnership, and most importantly, especially in the nonprofit realm, funding. When we get community investment into our work, that is what allows us to open the door to opportunity for our students. Now, I mentioned earlier that one of my favorite parts of my project was just empowering students to use their voice. And I got the immense pleasure of putting together a lovely video with some testimonies for you. So I am going to invite you all to join me in watching that now. Coming from a small town in rural New York, I never imagined I'd have access to any environment as collaborative as the Jacobs Institute. This experience hasn't just taught me new skills. It's shown me what my future could look like in healthcare and here in Buffalo, New York. And I'm not the only one who's grown in that way.
I didn't think I would ever hold a brain or a spine here at the Jacobs Institute.
I've learned more about stent retrievers and catheters and how they're applied.
This was my first time being able to see and hold a human heart.
This program means a lot to me.
This experience made me realize I am interested in biomedical engineering.
The student interns here at the Jacobs Institute today are the future doctors, researchers, and innovators who will help create a healthier tomorrow. The impact of these programs is bigger than all of us. Buffalo is becoming a leader in treating neurological and vascular diseases around the globe, challenges that directly affect so many families in our Western New York community. The future of healthcare in Buffalo is being built right now. Be part of it. Make a donation that helps bring better care closer to home. It gives me goosebumps. Well, it's so wonderful to see students have the opportunity to share their experience here at the JI. But none of that would have happened had it not been for a single gift, a gift of an opportunity. We at the JI can open and prop the door for students to come in and take advantage of these opportunities, but opportunities don't matter unless you have access as well. When we think about daily necessities, such as a paycheck, or reliable transportation, or access to healthy meals to feel energized throughout the day, when we think about those in our daily lives, we fail to think about the many students who don't have access to those. Here at the JI, we're very unique with our education programs, where we offer certain resources to help make our education programs accessible to underserved students. Resources such as stipends to support participation, not having to choose a paying job elsewhere, meals to help address issues with food insecurity and remove the stress of finding meals, transportation assistance to help remove barriers to students getting here to the JI, and also just mentorship opportunities, which help overcome obstacles and barriers to building a professional network. And that's why the JI Seeds of Innovation is taking place. Over the last hour, we have heard many testimonies from our interns. We saw how engineers are contributing to our innovation mission, how education interns are leading programs that are forging a healthcare pipeline for underserved students in Buffalo, New York. And we heard directly from the JI interns who have been impacted by these opportunities, all for the better. We had mentioned that the Mother Cabrini grant does offer funding for our education programs. However, that's for our foundational budget. We ultimately do not get coverage for the many accessibility resources that we at the JI strive to provide in order to build that pipeline for underserved students. And with that, I invite you all to consider making a gift today. Your generosity will directly impact and support the 2027 intern cohort next summer at the JI, and it's helping to provide the many accessibility resources and necessities that make these growing experiences possible and impactful. No gift is too small, and all this goes towards opening the door and granting access for the next wave of innovators in healthcare. Every innovator starts as a seed, and every opportunity for growth starts with someone willing to invest in a better tomorrow for those students today, patients tomorrow, and Western New York for years to come. Every innovator is a seed, and tomorrow they will be our healthcare workforce. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us today, the JI staff for embracing all of us interns this summer like family, and for everybody who has donated to support our mission here at the JI. And with that, I'm going to invite all of our interns back on stage to do some Q&A.
So while our interns get situated, if you have a question, please raise your hand and I will be happy to come over with the microphone.
So my question is, we heard about, all of your successes this summer. What were some of your greatest challenges?
I would say for me, with such a big project, it was really daunting to not know how to start and make progress within it because you're just looking at the overall goal. So I would definitely say the biggest challenge for me was just trying to make tiny steps for myself each day to tackle such a big problem and work toward it to get it completed at the end.
Kind of along the same vein, I mentioned in my presentation that sometimes your first idea is not your last. So I think finding that line of I'm going to stop and try to make whatever I'm doing perfect versus just go with what you have, test it, and move on and make those iterations. I think that was the biggest hurdle for me to kind of attack was just trying to find where's the balance in between of spending too much time on something or just moving on.
I would have to agree with that. I think my biggest challenge was also just getting hung up on little things in the design process of my project, as well as just thinking too much about some little details. So oftentimes, once you just move on, the project kind of just fixes itself.
For me, I have two. As you guys know, I connected with a bunch of healthcare professionals. That was quite difficult. Obviously, they have very busy schedules. They have literal lives in their hands, and trying to find people that both are able to do that and connect with us was kind of difficult, but it was obviously a joy to have. And then my second one was learning to communicate with people that had different communication styles than myself. You're not always going to work with people that you know how to work with perfectly. You're gonna have to work with different people to get anywhere in life, especially in careers and that kind of stuff. So I was able to learn how to communicate with someone and people in general that I've never communicated with before, and I was able to grow in that sense.
For me, as an education intern, I did a lot of prepping and planning. I spent about 5 weeks doing that. However, during that stage, I didn't get instant feedback from students because they weren't here yet. When the students did come, I did get the feedback that I wanted. However, during that planning stage, I'm a big time planner. So when I was planning, I'm like, is this correct? Are they going to like this activity? Are they going to like that speaker? So that was kind of a challenge, but overall, it ended up working great.
Yeah, For me, my projects were a little different, and just when you're working in communications, you're working with so many different parties. We have, especially here, the clinicians, the donors, our patients, students, and engineers. So we're balancing all of these very different perspectives and strategically figuring out and working with everybody to create the most perfect message we can that meets the needs for all of our audiences.
So I'm always amazed this time of the year how these young bucks who are just starting college and just starting their professional education of sorts can come here over a period of just a few weeks and create really good and really useful work. This is not work that's designed for work's sake to keep you occupied for 10 weeks. This is stuff that, as you well saw, directly impacts our ability to conduct the research or the educational programming or testing of devices, etc. So each and every presentation that was done today really is just a remarkable expression of the positive team that we have here at the JI and the incredible talent that we have out there that we get to enjoy every summer. If you were each going to make one comment about what we could do better, that would actually make the next class of interns have even a better time than you had. Maybe that's not possible, but if you were going to guess, what would that be?
Yeah, so I would say for me, I got to do something that not a lot of the other interns got to be a part of. The JI just started doing these immersion programs, and I was a part of a catheter immersion program where I got to learn about what catheters are to an audience who maybe wouldn't know that, and then I got to shadow in cath labs and see how actual procedures would work. So since that's very new at the JI, I think that's something, if we did incorporate that to the future engineering or intern programs, that would be amazing, because it was definitely my favorite part of the internship.
I hate to sound like a copycat, but I am on Aaron's side. I was involved in, or got to watch a few cadaver studies and just different testing experiences, which you don't get inside the classroom. So having that and being exposed to that, I think, was something that was, again, just a redefining, this is what I want to do, and it really kind of put the whole internship at a bird's eye view, just like, you get all these experiences here, and it, again, definitely makes me want to stay in Buffalo in the great cardiovascular innovation, neurovascular system we have.
I think, like, as an intern, what I now want to do is to write, like, some documentation for, like, any future interns who would come after, right? Like, I think, like, us interns have a very good perspective on what it's like to kind of just get thrown into the deep end, to hit the ground running and get a project started. But sometimes, for some people, it might be a little bit more difficult. So I would like to, like, harp on, like, more continuous developments between previous interns and future interns.
For me, honestly, I think the next gen internship is pretty like ironed out. You know, the exit surveys are amazing. I loved using that data. I was also able, even though I was like an education intern, I also got to see the catheterization labs. I was able to see like an open brain surgery, which is like insane. I loved all of that too, because I'm also like a biomedical engineering student, so I was able to see both sides. I don't know if it's just me personally, but I just loved being a little bit more hands-on when like the interns, we were still like in the planning phase. But other than that, I mean, for the creation of the next gen internship, everything is really good.
I would say the same thing. I would say it was really amazing. This summer internship gave me a lot of great experiences, soft skills that I will carry with me. I'm a big time planner, like I just said. One thing that I think would be great, especially when it comes to serving over high school students, maybe an opportunity where they get to network with the students that have already been through the program, and they can kind of see what those students are doing right now. It could be a panel style, or it could be a networking session to kind of open up the opportunities for these students to network and see where this internship can even lead them in the future. So that's the only suggestion I would make.
Yeah, thinking about my perspective, the JI is really just coming into a more robust communications department. And it'll sound so funny, but when it came to the end of the internship, we're looking back and we're like, wow, we don't have a lot of pictures of everything that went on. So maybe just having a way that we can have our communications teams in the loop to be able to see a little bit more of some of these amazing experiences that these other guys got this summer.
Those are great inputs for us. We appreciate all that. In fact, very sophisticated feedback, which was really good. My question is, how many takes did it take you to get the couch scene to work out? There's no way. One?
Yes.
It was,
We had practice.
it was all him.
Okay. My question probably goes to, those are great suggestions for us. There's also, it's pretty daunting to come in an internship, particularly into something, in some places, unique, complex, creative, and collaborative that we have here. What helped you the most at kind of getting up that learning curve when we threw you into the crucible? What did we get right while we were trying to get you up there? Because your outcomes were outstanding. I mean, very impactful work this summer. So we must have done a few things really well in getting you up the curve.
Yeah, so I have like two things. One is the fact that I got to be a part of that catheter immersion program was, I think, the best way I could have had an introduction to my project. It was like explained in a way that was very easy for just anyone to understand. So I was mechanical engineering background, so I didn't have too much like knowledge on the bio like parts of this project. So having that like as an intro was like very helpful for like then moving next steps of my project. And then second, I can say just to get through the internship, I had so much help from everyone here to like just, we're all in the same boat. We all had our own projects, and just like collaborating with the other interns, we would always ask each other different questions. So that was definitely like the biggest help.
I would say in the beginning, Mike was absolutely incredible. I had Post-its, and just my notebook was filled with questions, and he answered every single one of them. So thank you. And secondly, again, echoing Aaron, I can't stand next to you. You're just sucking away at your stuff. I think just having the interns, I was at Aaron and Ella's desk so much towards the end, working on the second iteration, the tank. Just, does this make sense? I've been staring at it all day, and I need someone else to verify that I'm thinking kind of correctly. So having that support and just being able to talk with you guys and then know that we're all going through that same experience in the beginning of being thrown into something new was very helpful, because it kind of gave us a sense of confidence away, like, hey, you got this, or, good luck on testing, or any kind of like things like that.
Yeah, I would have to agree that my mentor, Mike, there's two Mikes, by the way.
Yes.
My mentor is another Mike, but my mentor was very, very helpful in like sort of pointing me in the right direction, introducing me to previous work that's been done. And I think there's always a lot to learn when you look at like the previous work that's been done on these projects, because it'll tell you how you want to move on with the future.
For me, as I kind of answered in the question earlier, I think it's like very organized right now, and I love that I was able to like, okay, I need photos from last year, or feedback, or who were the presenters from last year. I was able to open the documentations that we had, and I was able to just grab that and use that for this year. Also, like, kind of to copy you too, everybody in this group, I was at everyone's desk, honestly. Yeah. I just loved communicating with everyone, because I knew Aaron and Maddie before the internship, which was also very helpful because we like had kind of a starting foundation. But I just loved this group, and we would just hang out and talk, and our lunch breaks were so interesting. But really just like the group of people and the organizational skills you guys have, and obviously my mentors, oh my gosh, and you guys, Julie and Pam. But that's my answer on that one.
I would like to mention 3 things. So first, yes, the community of interns were also supportive this summer. That's one thing. Definitely my mentors, Pam and Julia. I had way too many questions for Julia, but she always answered them very clearly. She always made the time to answer my questions, to support me whenever I needed that. So thank you very much. That was very helpful. I would say another thing that definitely did help me was coming to this internship with a growth mindset, and knowing that maybe I'm not familiar with everything that the JI does, but I'm still a lifelong learner and I can learn those things. So I think just having that growth mindset helped me a lot.
Yeah, I think the JI's vision and mission and how it is carried out day to day being able to work with a staff that, doesn't see these hierarchical boundaries between interns like us who are, in some cases, bottom of the totem pole, and, from our admins to our mentors, clinicians, at every point, everybody has been open to feedback, to answering questions, and there's always this wonderful open door policy. And I've had to communicate in my position with some pretty big names here at the JI, and at every point, it was met with kindness and respect, and I think that really helped me to flourish here.
Hi, everybody. First off, congratulations on everything that you guys have been able to accomplish within your time here at the JI. My question for each of you would be, if your time at the JI was extended, what would you guys want to work on next or learn about next?
Yeah, so I know I had mentioned during my presentation that there was a add-on system and sensor on my project that was used by the people upstairs. But the system was very complex, so I would recommend, if I had next steps, I would say that the JI should buy the original MSI, which is the manufacturer torque package, so we can extend the different types of tests that we can do and do further testing on that. And then it can be one integrated system as well. So that's from me.
I would say with my project specifically that I just presented, I would love to test out the second, the tank and see how that would work. But just looking overall, I would love to get into more of the different types of engineering or different types of teams that are here. The model development team, more of the testing and the studies, getting that kind of well-rounded approach of what we have here at the Jacobs Institute. I just think getting my hands on all of that would just be incredibly useful to the skills that I already have and learning new ones.
All right. Is it too greedy to say I'd want to do everything all over again? Probably. I would like to, at least from a technical point, I would like to just keep working on the model because it's 90% finished, but the last 10% is what takes the longest, right? So I'd want to make many more modular sections because I only have one right now, because especially with the aorta, everyone has very different aortic shapes. Some people may have two connected to each other. They may be all in completely different areas. So I'd want to basically just grow the ant model ecosystem.
In this role, honestly, just kind of what we're doing now, working with any of the educational programming. I mean, even tomorrow, me and Elnaz are running one of the brain boot camps. So just continuing with that educational program, maybe coming up with new educational programs for the college students or stuff like that. Just kind of allowing so much more people to hear the name of JI and the mission and be a part of it, because it is an amazing feeling to be a part of it. So just helping out with the educational team in general, honestly.
I definitely did enjoy working with first-year scholars. If I can do it again, that would be great. Maybe over next year scholars, I can work with them. Additionally, I'm entering my MBA this fall, so if I can maybe have a project where I can help out with administrative tasks, that would kind of help me enter into my MBA program. That would be also great.
Yeah, all of my projects really helped to kind of create a more solid foundation for our communications team. So obviously with the newsletters going out, continuing to help with publications and articles for that, finding opportunities for grant funding, and also I fell in love with fundraising. It's been a very stressful 4 weeks building that, but there's something so beautiful about standing at the finish line when you're done, which it's not done also.
How about one more round of applause for these incredible humans? So great job to all of you, and I want to thank everybody who came out today to support our education initiatives and our college internship program. I would also like to invite everybody across the hall into the Jacobs Institute for refreshments afterwards. And with that, once again, our gratitude is all to you for the support of our incredible interns this summer. So thank you.
Thank you.